How's it going, my friends? Welcome to the Drone Camps channel. I'm Justin Davis with over 10 years of FPV experience and RC experience. I've been flying since I was 10 years old. I started out with airplanes. I moved into helicopters in the early 2000s, and somewhere in the 2000s I picked up FPV. I started putting cameras on nitro and gas planes, flying them around events and AMA events, and doing aerial videos of our big events. So that's kind of how I got started in FPV, because eventually I had a system and a setup that I converted an old DVD player with an old school Dean's connector, and on the back of this I had a couple pieces of Velcro, and I had my 1.3 transmitter on the back here. So very old school setup here. This actually opens up and has a DVD player inside. It's like something they used for campers maybe 15 years ago, but I saw this and thought it would be the perfect field monitor. So I used to take this out, mount it on a tripod with a giant battery on the back, and that's how I used to do FPV, over 10 years ago. So today, fortunately, we have much nicer monitors, we have much nicer goggles, and if you're just getting into it, this video is great because it's kind of like a land of confusion out there with all the different transmitters. I mean, you have gaming style transmitters, you have ELRS, you have 2.4, you have 915 megahertz, you have full-size transmitters, cheaper transmitters, the DJI transmitter, Beta FPVs transmitters that are light series transmitters. You have the jumper ones, you have iFlight Commando coming out, we also have Zorro coming out, we have the EX8 from LDARC, we have the Radio Master t-lite and the Pro with the flip-up screen, and there's multiple types of operating systems out there, such as OpenTX, and there's also Edge TX, which I'm also running on my TX16S over there. There's even a new TX16S Pro coming out from Radio Master that has all the upgrades on there already for you with those new CNC gimbals that they released. Very cool. And if you guys have watched my channel before and you wonder about these little thumb pads that I use, they just fit right over any stick. It's kind of nice. I call it kind of like a thumb couch. You can get these from a company called Bestem Aerial, BESTEM Aerial. So if you Google that, you can probably find their website. These are about $5 a set, and they just keep my thumbs on the sticks while I'm flying freestyle. My thumb never falls off. It's kind of nice. So those are kind of like thumb couches, and I love the spade ones right here that are on my TX16S. So today's review, we're predominantly going to talk about the inclusion of ELRS and the new Jumper T Pro, and it does look like a DJI transmitter, as we talked about last week. It's very similar to the DJI transmitter, kind of and a lot of these are looking very similar, but this is a great upgrade in comparison to the original Jumper that came out over a year ago now. This is a 4-in-1 multi-protocol radio with the option to add an ELRS module on the back. And some people on Facebook said, oh man, I wish there was built-in ELRS on the Jumper T Pro. Well, there is one coming, yes, but I actually prefer this one. And if you want to find out why in this video, stick around, because we're going to go ahead and jump right into talking about all the specs and get really into the T Pro, the non-ELRS version, and why I might prefer this one over the built-in ELRS. Here we go. All right, guys, welcome to the review part of the t-lite Pro. So yeah, it's a really nice looking radio, but there are some things that we need to talk about in this review that are software to hardware type of issues. You've probably seen the other reviews already if you're interested in this radio, but I'm going to address some of those issues in this video today, and we're also going to talk about the specs on this radio and what you can get out of the box if you decide to buy the T Pro. Now, I like the fact that it does have the 4-in-1 multi-protocol module built into it, and I have the option to do ELRS on the back. That is good for me in a way, because I have a ton of other tiny whoops sitting around with other receivers on there. So, in case in point, old SPI receivers that run on D8 protocol, which is an FR Sky built-in receiver on the flight controller. you could bind this up to that by going into the internal menu and selecting FrSky D8, which is nice. D8 or D16 receivers, I have a ton of them laying around, so this radio will do that. If you want to run the newer protocols, the faster and more long-range protocol, they're giving us this option for ELRS module on the back with this little mini diamond antenna, which I think is super awesome. You can select in OpenTX firmware that's on here the external module, and you can make it Crossfire ELRS. There is actually a new selection in that external menu. It used to be just CRSF, and now it's actually CRSF / ELRS, which is cool. So they're saying that this is on the same protocol, which is really, really cool. So you can also get a new module that is one watt, and they have a version of this radio that's also coming out that is going to be a 1 watt built-in ELRS module, a dedicated ELRS on this. So that's a lot of people wanted that, and they mentioned that. So Jumper's listening, and that was really nice of them to do that. Aside from a really slick looking case, it has some switches on here that are different than the original Jumper. The t-lite came with like standard style switches that are very similar to a full-size transmitter. This has 2 3-position switches here, and it has 2 2-position switches on the back. Now, this is usually my ARM switch. This is my dedicated ARM switch on all of my radios, even my TX16S, just like this back here. And it's usually SC in the model menu. So when you go to set that switch up, that's what it'll be. And it's the same thing on here with one exception. And that exception is that this is not a dedicated switch. There should have been a switch like this here as a 2-position switch. In my mind, this switch should have been here on the horizontal, not on the vertical here. But they made 2 momentary switches on the outside of this transmitter. Were they making it similar to the Crossfire Tango 2, the TBS Tango 2? That one had a push down button, and you push it down and it would hold its position, and then you push it again and then it would pop up. And that was my ARM switch for over a year until I lost it on the side of the road somewhere. But this one has a momentary switch, and that's driving everybody crazy, because what you have to do is you have to go inside the logical switches setup and you have to change it to sticky, and then you have to make it stick to one position and the next. So that's one thing that makes some people crazy. If you go into the menu here and you go into your model and you scroll over, you can scroll all the way over to logical switches, and what you want to do is, first of all, go ahead and edit that, make it STKY here at the top, and then you're going to select, well, when it's highlighted, you push this switch once and it selects it, unselect it again, and then go down to the next V2, and you make that also SC. And once you do that in the logical switches, and you select STKY here at the very top for the function, then it has a sticky. So in other words, when I press this, it's armed, and when I press it, it's disarmed. So that might be a turn off to some people. So this transmitter is $99. It does appear to have a nicer design than the original t-lite with a new school antenna. It has that very DJI looking horizontal antenna, and I've been telling people to turn their transmitter stick to the side like this to get the best signal for years, and that's what this is a dedicated horizontal setup. And they also say with Crossfire, make sure that your antennas are facing the same way on your radio. If you're running something like the Tango 2, you want to turn it vertical if you have a vertical setup antenna on your quad, or if it's horizontal across the back, then make sure you turn it horizontal. So that's just a tip for new people getting into Crossfire. But 4-in-1 multi-protocol on this, and you can bind up receivers such as Spectrum, Futaba, and probably 50 different protocols on there. It can also run 2 versions of firmware on this radio. You can run OpenTX, and you can also run Edge TX, which is what I have on this radio. So very nice. Edge TX enables the touch screen on your TX16S, which is super nice. I love this radio. This is my daily driver radio that I use, and you guys saw the AG01 gimbals that I installed on here with the LEDs. Beautiful radio. It has a full-size JR bay in the back, module bay for my full-size Crossfire module, which I always run. It also has these 6 switches across the top, and normally I never use these, and you probably will never use them either. They're also across the top here on this little T Pro, but they're different. These have to be set up to work all on one channel. I believe Bardwell's talked about it, and as well as Gal Crimmer. Now Gal Crimmer does have a fix for it, and you can do that change and watch their videos and makes this change if you decide you want to use these. But the most annoying thing about this thing was that you can't select multiples of these. They can only be on one at a time. So that's kind of a turn off. So if you're flying in one mode on an iNav airplane and you select a different mode here, it's going to switch out of that mode. So it's going to turn that mode off. And the Radiomaster TX16S, and you can see right here, it's already set up to work correctly. So yeah, that's one thing about that. So this radio, again, it's $99 in my opinion. For right now, you've got to go in and do some system tweaking and some things to change around before you can even go out and arm on a simple arm switch your quad. Is that the elephant in the room with this? I know that it's, in a way, I mean, is it a necessary drama or is it not? It's just things that as reviewers and users of radios, we've been used to having all of these switches. I mean, even on the cheap FSI6, like, you have that 2-position switch right there for your left index finger, and that's the way it's always been. I mean, maybe are we too old school because that's the way we want it on all of our radios? I don't know. Jumper seems to be kind of reinventing the wheel there, and maybe they didn't think hard enough about that. So I hope to see that in a V2 version of this coming up, that for God's sakes, maybe they do fix that and add an actual switch on there, because a 2-position switch, one of these would have been great. This would be my flight mode switch here. This is a 3-position switch. This is a 3-position switch. And then again, there's that momentary switch. The gimbals feel great. They do have a lanyard spot in the middle. These are the trim buttons on the side here. You've got your menu button there. You can get into all of your models and add all of your different models. You can use your left right button here, and I wish there was a back button, I wish there was a page forward and backwards button. I wish it was 2 buttons here for page forward and backwards, because sometimes I want to go back, but with this radio you're going to be pressing that single page button to go all the way back around. So on my TX16S I have a forward and back page button, which is kind of nice. But smaller radios, you know, I do like this setup here with the jog wheel down here way better than the system menu setup on this. This was kind of a pain in the butt. You have enter, run, and everything is labeled, but it's also labeled really small. And the bind option on this was a pain in the butt. You had to press, I even forget which button it is now, but it would scroll over top of bind and totally pass bind. And then you would have to go back and press, I believe it was like, maybe like not the enter button. You would think it would be enter to bind, but it was actually model. If you press model, then it would start binding, or then it would go to the bind button and allow you to start binding. So it was kind of like maybe like a safeguard that Jumper did on this one, whereas this one you could go straight in and start binding way easier. So a little easier bind process on the T Pro. And I know a lot of you guys are probably going to buy this radio anyway because it looks super cool. I'm somewhere in the middle on my opinion on this one, and I know you guys, some of you guys are like, oh, Justin, you say everything's the best. No, not really. If you go back and look, some of my videos say this is the best, but that's the best at the current time and in a certain class, not for all of the entire drones in the entire world. So it is always specific to a certain class: 5-inch, 6-inch, 3-inch, 2-inch, and so on. But yeah, all the channels do it. They have best from time to time. So my opinion is just as valid as any other reviewer out there. And we've all been giving all of our efforts day to day for all these videos. So I'm on my 7th anniversary. Actually, this year is 8 years on the Drone Camps channel. So we're really stacking up some years online now. We're over 175,000 viewers. So I want to say thanks to everyone that's watching. But stay tuned again for the Jumper T Pro 1-watt version with a built-in ELRS coming out. I'm going to put the link down below for the Jumper T Pro. You can buy that one now for, you can get the Type A one. That one seems to be shipping for $99, and right now the reviews look pretty good. The reviews are 5 stars, and they've got, well, 1 review, so take that with a grain of salt. But you can also get extra receivers for these, and the receivers, they look a little different than the ELRS receivers from Beta FPV. They have a little more bulky top end antenna. They're orange on the top here. They have a UFL connector, and there are 4 wires on this little guy. And this thing is tiny, but it looks like it's going to be fairly easy to solder up. And binding these is a cinch. Again, you actually do have a little tiny bind button there if you want. And this is called the AION RX Mini SE Express LRS receiver. So very nice. This will take you out for miles if you want to. It also comes in the case with a stick cover, which is super nice. And I got to tell you, I'm happy about this. I'm happy about something. The module and the diamond antenna, if you fold it up, it actually fits in the case with the stick covers, and you can get this case closed safely without really a lot of pressure on the radio. So yeah, I think it's an okay release, but you're going to have to do some YouTubing to get this thing set up properly with your momentary switch as your arm switch, which you know, in the big scheme of things, makes it more complicated than it really needs to be. So I will also put the link down for the Jumper and the new Zora coming out as well. So also stay tuned for the iFlight Commando if they'll ever send me that one. I've been waiting for that one for a while, and I will also put the link down there for something that is full-time dedicated ELRS if you want. This is the Beta FPV Light Radio 3, which I am loving right now. So, but only 1 protocol on this one. But a lot of people are moving over to ELRS for tiny whoops, and they are being included in Beta FPV's quads right now with built-in ELRS SPI receivers, which is kind of cool. You get a little bind button on the very bottom of these quads as well. But thanks again for watching my reviews, guys, and seeing the honest truth as always on my channel, giving my opinion and all the latest on everything coming out in the FPV community. I appreciate you. Please do subscribe. Stay fly, guys. I'll see you on the next one.